from the CyberHub bunker and studio. You're tuning in to the CyberHub podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Hey everyone, welcome. Good morning. March 31st, 2021, the last day of the first quarter of this year. Welcome to the Practitioner Brief. If it's your first time tuning in, welcome. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is a no sales, no BS type of podcast. For the next 10 to 12 minutes, we're going to be looking at the most pressing cybersecurity stories that could impact practitioners all over. And we'll be talking about that here. But before we do that, just a few housekeeping things to keep in mind. One, we are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So please make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you're watching us on YouTube. For those listening on your favorite podcast listening platform, please make sure to subscribe. And please, if you love this content, if you value it, share it. You sharing it would be magnificent. You can comment and subscribe, and we'll pull your comments live on the show as well. We've got a bunch of stuff to talk about today, from the Microsoft report here on firmware attacks that are outpacing security investments, charming Kitten, the Iranian APT, back at it. VMware has a bug, fixes a bug that has allowed for attackers to take over specific aspects of it. We'll get to that momentarily as well. Biden extends a cybersecurity executive order. We'll go over that. And also, what happens when you leave Twitter and a little kid together? Today's show is supported by our friends over at KnowBe4 and Wistic. Please make sure to support them. You can find them in the show notes and help support the organizations that support this podcast. So, ceremonial cup of coffee, my ultimate tribute to Scott Adams, who I absolutely love. Who doesn't love Dilbert? Who in their right mind does not love Dilbert? My traditional double espresso. Cheers. All right, a few things. Let's get right into this. Microsoft is confirming a surge in malicious attacks targeting firmware, and the software giant wants to play a role in reducing the attack surface below the operating system. According to a new security signals report that was released Tuesday by Microsoft, a whopping 80% of businesses reported at least one firmware attack in the last 2 years, but only 30% allocated any budget spend on firmware protection. Businesses that aren't paying close enough attention to securing this critical layer, says David Weston, could be in for a long haul. Microsoft commissioned a study of 1,000 enterprise security decision makers from around the world, and the results confirmed that the bulk of current security spending goes to applying patches, vulnerability scanning, and advanced threat protection products that traditionally miss signs of infections below the operating system. Again, going through that is really, really significant. Good morning, Paul. How is it going, buddy? Things are going well, man. Things are going well. All right. As we look at this as well, though, Weston said that firmware provides a fertile ground to plant malicious code, and he said that the survey results show growing awareness among defenders to address this class of attack. So we're heading in the right direction. The spend isn't there yet, and there's going to be a bunch of questions to go around when it comes to the firmware side of the business, specifically because it identified that the OS kernel as an emerging gap in defense, and it also found that investments in the area, again, remain extremely low. We'll move on to charming Kitten, which is pouncing on medical research. Folks, Iran's in trouble. The Iranian regime is in trouble. Not getting political here, stating a fact. Okay? Spent my time in the military studying that part of the world. Let me tell you something. Iran is on the verge of collapse, and that's a good thing. That is a regime that is oppressing its people. That is a regime that is responsible for the death of hundreds of thousands of people in Syria. Over 500,000 Syrians are dead due to the regime's support to Bashar al-Assad, who chemically bombed his people. But Iran's beyond its evil work in the region, whether it be supporting the Houthi rebels in Yemen, leading to a a humane crisis like no other. It's even worse than Venezuela in Yemen right now because of this regime. Charming Kitten, which is kind of like their top APT in Iran, could be argued, is targeting a bunch of medical research. And this is according to Joshua Miller and the Proofpoint research team. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. The campaign may represent a shift in their targeting overall, but it's probably a result of a specific short-term intelligence collection requirement, meaning something more along the lines of they're trying to deal with the different healthcare conditions that are going on in Iran, including dealing with COVID-19. Biller says that Bad Blood, which is the name of their campaign, is aligned with an escalating trend of medical research being increasingly targeted by threat actors. Indeed, the medical professionals that were targeted in the latest campaign appear to be extremely senior personnel at their respective organizations, though Proofpoint hasn't conclusively determined that Charming Kitten's motives for the attack. It does seem to be a one-off attempt to gather intel and potentially can be used in further phishing campaigns. There's a history of bad behavior. They've targeted Israeli scholars. They've targeted U.S. government employees. They've targeted Israeli re-election efforts. They've targeted the former campaign of President Donald Trump. They've done a bunch of really malicious activities online. The latest campaign, which shows the group using at least some of its usual tricks with a typical goal to steal credentials. Proofpoint has also found researchers discovered the nefarious activity in December with a threat actor controlled Gmail account. You can see the name right there, masqueraded as a prominent Israeli physicist, and sent emails with the subject nuclear weapons at a glance, Israel to its targets. Again, these guys are extremely sophisticated. There are the top APT out of Iran. If you're in the medical field, a few things. One, keep your eye out for this research email right here, which is zoshfaman.daniel@gmail.com. I would also look at some of the Charming Kitten TTPs through your threat intel organizations and kind of tighten it up if you're in that space at all. VMware fixes a bug allowing attackers to steal admin credentials. This goes to VMware that published a security update to address a high severity vulnerability in the vRealize operations that could allow attackers to steal admin credentials from exploiting vulnerable servers. The vRealize operations, which is an AI-powered and self-driving IT operation management for private, hybrid, and multi-cloud environments, is available as an on-premise or a SaaS solution. The vulnerability was discovered and reported by VMware by Positive Technologies. And the privately reported vulnerability track, the CVE 2021-21975, is caused by a server-side request forgery bug in the vRealize Operations Manager API. Attackers can exploit the vulnerability remotely without requiring authentication or user interface in low-complexity attacks to steal administrative credentials. VMware rated the security flaw as high severity, giving it a base score of 8.6 out of 10. The patch is now available. If you are using VMware vRealize, please ensure you get this patch done. Get it done now. Although there's been no proof that it's being taken advantage of in the wild at this time. Mind you, the moment I said this, the moment this article was written this morning by Bleeping Computer, the moment VMware gave notice, someone's scanning, someone's trying, so don't be that person. President Biden is extending a Executive Order 136904, which was issued in 2015 by then President Barack Obama and extended in all 4 years by President Donald Trump, which essentially allows for sanctions based on cyber activities. President Biden has said that in the letter, in the extension, he said significant malicious cyber-enabled activities originating from or directed by persons located in whole or in substantial part outside the U.S. continue to pose an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security, foreign policy, and economy of the United States. Therefore, I've determined that it is necessary to continue the national emergency declared in Executive Order 136904 with respect to significant malicious cyber-enabled activities, according to the president. The letter clarifies that a national emergency is automatically terminated unless the president extends it within 90 days prior to the anniversary date of its declaration. Considering that executive order has been extended every year since it was issued by Obama, it will likely need to be extended again next year and next year thereafter, unless we come through with a solid policy proposal that creates a real detriment for creates a real deterrent for these foreign state actors to target our economy. And declaration of war is not one of them. We've talked about this on the Tech Town Square. We'll get to that here in just a moment. So what happens when you're working from home? You're on the U.S. Nuclear Command Stratcom site, Twitter page, because that's what your job is. And you kind of maybe get up to go make yourself a cup of coffee, and your little toddler walks up to the keyboard and goes do and hits tweet. Well, that's exactly what happened yesterday on Twitter under the Stratcom Twitter account, folks, where a kid for one of the people who's responsible for the social media account went in and issued a cryptic tweet that for some places became a conspiracy theory, for others was the launch code, all kinds of stuff that came out. Locking your computer, even at home, can have very significant impact to make sure this doesn't happen again. A really funny and amusing story. Some people say, James, that's not really funny. To me, it's hilarious. Kids are going to be kids, and parents are going to be parents, and this is the challenge of work from home in the long run. I mean, for the last year, we've all been working from home, and it's been, significantly better. But this is one of the challenges. Once kids go back to school, maybe this will change, but, we'll see. Paul asks, why do they continue to use unusual as a term? Because that's what they know. And unfortunately, unusual is in politics a excuse. So can we make it usual? I don't know. A natural experiment in ML and AI algorithms makes me think. I agree with that. And Jonathan here says, could happen to anyone. I butt dial people accidentally all the time. I do too, man. I accidentally will dial someone holding my phone or something. It could happen to anyone. That's why I think it's really amusing. People have made a really big deal out of the story of the kid going like, oh my God, our U.S. nuclear command's in shambles. And you're like, no, it's not. It's just someone took their eyes off the keyboard for just a minute to do something, and this happened. And guess what, folks? We're human, so things happen. For all of those watching us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, thank you so much for watching. Tonight, the Tech Town Square, a few things. I will not be there tonight. Eddie will have a guest host joining him for the Tech Town Square. It's my wife's birthday today, so happy birthday to my lovely wife. I'll be spending the better part of today with my family in a well-deserved, I think, day to spoil my wife. Last year for her birthday, I had COVID and couldn't do a darn thing, so I plan to spoil to make up for really having to deal with COVID last year and not being able to really do what a husband should be doing to his wife, which is, making sure that every day is her birthday, but also making sure that her birthday is an extra special day. And other things. So we're starting a fundraiser. We'll be starting the fundraiser next week with the Wounded Warrior Project. I've been given a challenge last week on the Tech Town Square that people want to see me wear a Paisley shirt. And I said, never, because Eddie looks great in those shirts. I'm not. I just not my style. But in an effort to entertain all of you viewers and listeners, we'll be setting up a fundraiser with the Wounded Warrior Project with several goals and milestones. So that way you guys get to enjoy me outside of my black t-shirt, and we'll be supporting a great cause, which is the Wounded Warrior Project, which is really big. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you don't miss tonight's Tech Town Square, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Ari, a former FBI agent and an attorney, will be co-hosting the show with Eddie, and It's going to be a great one. We spoke briefly on Monday, and I'm so excited for what those two guys have in store for all of you. So make sure you tune into that. Tomorrow, I'll be back again at 9 a.m. here with wrapping up this week, and it'll be April Fool's. So I may or may not have some funny survey for you tomorrow. May or may not. We'll find out. All right, guys, that's it. Gang, thank you so much for watching. Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, we'll be back with a lot more tomorrow. Oh, we got a few comments here. Let's bring those up here before we go away. Happy birthday, K. Mine is tomorrow. LinkedIn user. I don't have my other setup, so I don't know who you are, but thank you so much. And Paul Cummings says, Paisley. Yes, I know, Paul. I know. My wife and everyone else is going to be having a blast watching me wear Paisley. It's going to look very awkward. I'm going to feel uncomfortable, but nonetheless, for the cause of our wounded warriors, I will go and walk 1,000 miles in the desert as well. So that's it for us here, folks. Enjoy the rest of your day. Wrap up this first quarter strong, and we'll be in welcoming the second quarter and April tomorrow. So until then, stay safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.